Hello, everyone. Whether you're listening or watching, welcome to the Jack and Joe Show. It's been a couple of weeks since we last spoke, Jack, and it's been a frantic couple of weeks. The last time we spoke was previewing the Crystal Palace game. We've since also had league games against Arsenal and then most recently Liverpool. A lot of different emotions from these three games. Jack, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well. Palace, obviously a huge disappointment for everyone. Arsenal, again, a frustrating night, but I feel like maybe now all is forgotten because of that win against Liverpool. A huge morale boost. A game we basically had to win, but everyone was thinking we weren't going to win because we were playing the champions to be. But we did win, and we won by 3 goals to 2, Joe, in one of the most entertaining games I've seen this season at the Cottage. One of the most maybe controversial at times for reasons on and off the pitch as well. And we're going to get into it today, then preview Bournemouth and talk a little bit about the relegation. Well, the relegation battle that is
It's not
basically
a
over.
battle,
It's
is
not
it?
a
Yeah.
battle. It's just not a battle. Joe,
To surrender.
let's get into it. I want to hear from your emotions up and where you sit in the Hammersmith end or where you stand in the Hammersmith end. McAllister strides forward. From in my personal opinion, I think Chris Kavanagh sort of is really badly positioned. It sort of stops Berger from getting any momentum towards McAllister. But the lead up to the goal was so frustrating because Muniz couldn't get the ball under control. Iwobi then couldn't get the ball under control. McAllister strode through like he had the freedom of like his own house, Kevin McAllister, in Home Alone, and then he went through and put their one in our goal hole beyond Leno. A great finish, but very preventable. And then, what's the atmosphere like on your end there when Fulham are losing to Palace, then losing to Arsenal, and then 1-0 down within 15 minutes to a Liverpool team who it looks almost impossible to come back against?
Well, I'm fuming when that goal first goes in for the main reason that, to be honest, we'd started the game really, really well just before then. It was almost reminiscent of the Palace game in terms of the atmosphere was really good. Team started really high energy, high pressing. Obviously, there was the penalty incident as well that happened 5 minutes in, and I was feeling a little bit hard done by from that, even though I hadn't quite seen it back yet. I was thinking, that smelt a bit weird to me. That smelt a bit top six biasy to me, um, as everything normally does to me. In all honesty, I think I've got an issue with my sinuses because everything smells of top six bias these days. And then that goal goes in, and it really reminded me of the Palace first goal from Eze, not in terms of the strike itself, but in terms of the ball going long to Muniz, who's almost wrestled out of it, and then just suddenly a break at pace. We weren't sure whether it was a foul. After seeing it back, I don't think it was. And then, and it was probably the only time that Muniz or Berger made slight errors in the game, in all honesty, if we fast forward to the rest of it. It's a great strike. My frustration very quickly turned to anger. And I think this was an emotion shared by a lot of fans around me where I sit. And I imagine in other stands as well, because I would say the bottom fifth of the Hammersmith end. So, it's a small section on my side. So I sit in H7. So as you're looking at the game, I'm on the right-hand side. The goal's on my left. And it's the corner of fans where often you see, fans, sort of top six team comes to town. They all get up on their phones, filming whoever's coming to take the corner, for example. But I'm seeing people just celebrate the goal. If you've watched the goal back, we've just spoken about it off camera. Watch the goal back and take a look at a bald man in a white top, just to the left of the goal in the slow-mo replay. Gets up, both arms in the air, and that went on for a while. He was, there was people telling him to get down and stuff. He was giving some back, and there's a steward right in front of him that did nothing about it. And I watched him basically shrug his shoulders like that when someone said, what do you want me to do? Well, actually, I want you to do your job, in all honesty, and get him out. I don't think that's too much to ask. And if you can't do it, go and get someone that will. Because you look like quite a young guy. I can understand that maybe it's not the best job in the world kicking someone out, but ultimately you're not there to watch the football. You're there to steward the game. So it was a really frustrating moment, and the fans, I think, the first time, revolt is the wrong word, but took matters into their own hands and didn't let this guy sit back and enjoy the game. They went over, they made sure this guy got kicked out, and he got kicked out at 1-0. So just before we equalised, it took nearly 10 minutes to get him kicked out. And there was another one further down that was later in the game in H8, so right by the corner. He had celebrated the first goal as well. And the stewards thought, what we're going to do is we're going to punish him. We're going to wait and make him wait until Fulham are 2-1 up, and then we're going to kick him out. So that was fantastic, because by the time he got kicked out and has to make the long walk up the stairs, obviously the atmosphere was absolutely booming. I'm sick of Fulham being a soft touch off the pitch. Forget about on the pitch for a second. Fans come to our ground and they take the piss. The Palace fans that were at the home end in the cup game, the perfect example. It's the club's fault for getting them the tickets. But, Jack, I've sat in the home end at another ground before. I've sat in the home end at Arsenal. I've sat in the home end at West Ham. You sit on your hands. It's a sign of respect. If the other team, I've sat in Everton as well, actually. That was bad. We lost 4-1. That was terrible.
Brilliant.
Didn't have to sit on my hands much. You blend in. You don't celebrate the goals. I'm not saying that. I'm not expecting that. But this was a disgrace. And the fans did a fantastic job in getting them kicked out. My call to all fans is, if you see this happening, please take a note of the seat number, or at least the area that it's in, and report it to the club afterwards. If we make a list, it's the same areas every game. It's the bottom of the Hammersmith end, which is non-season ticket holder seats. It's a large group of the Putney end. We were just saying, watching the goals back, take a look. You can outline them for yourselves. You can count them. You can see there's a Liverpool fan. Go back to when we played Arsenal. There's an Arsenal fan. Go back to when we played United. There's a United fan. Newcastle. There's plenty of other teams that they might have supported in those areas that have been touts or whatever, where we just got lucky and we didn't concede a goal that day, or we didn't score a goal at that end, so no one noticed. But ultimately, these are repeated offenders. They are always the same areas. They're always large groups. And I'm sick of it. It's a home area of the ground. It's not mixed anymore. And what makes it even worse is that there's an option for these fans to basically just walk into the away end if they wanted to, because no one checks. The segregation, the stewarding, everything in that stand in the Putney stand, I mean by this, is an absolute disgrace. And I'm sick of it. We've got new turnstiles now. How about we use them, segregate it properly, and have an absolute no away fans policy in any home areas?
I think this situation, I was thinking about this yesterday, has highlighted something that you've obviously been a big advocate for. And it's probably the only reason I can justify in my head why this would be a good idea. And that is to move the fans who want to sing, the fans who want to make a noise right next to the away fans. Because then you would have proper Fulham to the right hand side of the away end, and I think it would make a huge difference. You wouldn't see this sort of crowd of people that are right next to the away end not get up. I mean, 3 goals were scored down the Putney end by Fulham, and you could visibly see, unfortunately, that a large portion of those people did not get up to celebrate. It was incredibly easy to spot when it was called, or when it was known as, the neutral stand, which is still something that people bring up to this day about Tin Pot Fulham, but it doesn't really matter, because you could just see that the varying colours around that. You could be all the way in towards the tunnel and still sort of see the colours of red or blue, or basically not black and white. Now it's obviously much more segregated. This has obviously been a thing, but yeah, it's an incredibly repetitive scenario we find ourselves in.
And if you think of it from a logical perspective as well, there are loads of season ticket holders in the Putney end that used to be in the Riverside stand, some of which are, even if they're not, it doesn't matter, but some of them are families, older people, more vulnerable people than, for example, if they started on like the top of H5, for example,
Sure.
probably more able to hold their own. Not advocating for violence at all. Violence is unacceptable, but the problem is that something is going to happen one day. If someone's had a drink at the football and something kicks off, the club should be held responsible for this, because it's a situation that should have been quashed before. If Liverpool had equalised in the 90th minute on Sunday, and one of those Liverpool fans had celebrated in a home area, and someone's very frustrated, just says something bad or something, anything can start, and it can go from there, and someone is gonna get hurt. There were rumours of Palace fans and some sort of physical altercations that happened during the cup game when fans were visibly celebrating. But the reason this is happening, as much as I find these fans irritating, the blame is with the club for putting systems in place where it's easy for them to get tickets and they know there's no repercussions. And I don't want it to take any shine off this great day that we had on Sunday, but it really grated on me. And when watching it back, I was just so annoyed that this was allowed to happen again.
From my position in the Johnny Haynes, obviously going 1-0 down to Liverpool, I was thinking, oh God, this is going to be a very low day if we're hitting a third defeat in a row in all comps. And I was so distracted by what was going on in the Hammersmith end, which was a melee that took maybe 5-10 minutes to sort out. And I remember just hearing the cheers and I saw the guy being escorted out, and I thought, okay, well that's something at least. And then I sort of was like, right, I need to sort of focus on what's going on the pitch here, because nothing really was happening at that time in terms of Fulham weren't really knocking on the door. We didn't have too many chances within that period. And then suddenly, the game completely changes. And Ryan Sessegnon, I can't. It's taken us 11 minutes to get to the first goal. Fair enough. Ryan Sessegnon, I just like when he scored, I just sat there and thought about it for so long. I was like, he always does this. When Fulham needs something, let's not beat around the bush here. If Fulham had lost this game, or Liverpool had scored a second, the atmosphere would have turned pretty toxic. Just because we're out the cup and everyone will be like, well, that's Europe done now. And the thing is, like, it was incredibly expected for us to lose these games because Arsenal are better team in second and Liverpool are a better team than us in first place. But who is going to grab the game by the scruff of the neck, come up with a big moment, change the fortunes of the club, change the fortune of the game? It always is Ryan. Like, it's always him. It's always him. Assist for Tom Cairney in the playoff final. What a moment. What a ball by Sess. Goal in the playoff semi-final against Derby when we needed it. He did it. Goal against Wolves in that huge game at the top of the table. He did it. And he just popped up. Hat-trick away at Sheffield United. Big moments, big game player. Always Ryan Sessegnon. And he just did it again. And it's such a Sessegnon finish. Just finds himself in the box. I mean, it's great that he's playing on the right wing. Gives him more of an opportunity to be in those positions anyway. It's fortunate how he falls off Jones. But what a finish. Like, it's so quick, Kelleher can't react at all. 1-1. And I'm like, okay, game on. We did this last season. Castagna scored against Liverpool. Okay, come on, let's give him a game. But let's not roll over like we did last time, where that second half performance against Liverpool last season was really, really poor, really sloppy, and they went on to win the game 3-1, to the point where we were watching Coventry versus Man United on our phones because the game was so over. Anyway, and then Liverpool, and I think I knew Jamie Carragher would do something on this on Monday Night Football. I was quite sad that I wasn't there to watch it live, although I was very pleased to be at the under-21s last night. But the clips are on Twitter if you want to watch it. It's brilliant what Fulham do in terms of how they're structured, but Liverpool are just really silly in this situation. Van Dijk, I think, takes one too many touches. Robertson does his best Bruno Guimaraes impression and just tries to play the ball across the box. It falls to Iwobi, and Konate does well to get the block in, and I think maybe the chance is gone because Iwobi takes it down, but it's sort of obvious what he was going to do with it. The ball falls back to him. Great work from Pereira. To put pressure on the ball when it's up in the air. It forces the ball to come back to Iwobi, who then goes onto his weaker foot. And then Robertson's probably had the worst 10 seconds you could have on a pitch. Gives the ball away and then scores. Basically, wasn't an own goal, but it came off him. And then it's 2-1 Fulham. And you're thinking, right, we're in the lead now. How are we going to manage it from here? And I was thinking, oh God, Liverpool just going to swarm us, have loads of the ball, loads of territory. No. Fulham go for it again. Iwobi comes close. Kelleher saves, and then from the resulting corner, it comes in, not the greatest corner, headed away. Iwobi, million miles up in the air. You're thinking, oh God, okay. And then, Joe, I'll let you take over. The touch from Muniz, the finish from Muniz scores incredible goals. It's another incredible goal, another amazing goal from Muniz. Burnley away, Tottenham at home. I think Wolves away is a great finish as well. Talk to me about this. Van Dijk claiming for something, he gets a little nudge, but that's just good play, good strikers play. What a finish from Muniz. And what are you thinking at 3-1?
Well, suddenly I'm thinking we can win this game. It's the first time in the match I'm thinking that, because at 2-1 up, even though we're playing well, as negative as this sounds, I go back to the game at Anfield where we were 3-2 up with a few minutes left. I go back to the league game this season when we were 2-1 up with about 5 minutes left, and they were down to 10 men as well. Both of those I'm thinking this is great because at least we're not going to lose, because almost anything in these games is a bonus. I know that's a very negative mentality to have, but I wasn't expecting anything from this game. At 2-1 up, I was thinking, okay, I think we'll at least get a point here. At 3-1 up, I was thinking we're going to win this, because the turn is unbelievable. He made Van Dijk look really, really silly. And as much as there's been a bit of talk after the game about how he's not been as great lately, not many players make him look this silly. There's a difference between being at your best and being made to look like a League Two defender against Premier League opposition, because the nous of Muniz to take a quick glance at him, give him a little nudge. I don't know what he's complaining. I mean, it's quite embarrassing how much he complains, I've got to be honest, because
really embarrassing.
Come on. Yeah, I mean, it's almost as embarrassing as elbowing a player for no reason, but I don't think we'll even come on to that one today. Just a bit of a weird one. Babel said years ago that he knew his weakness at Craven Cottage. I think Muniz knows his weakness as well, and that's just strength, seemingly, because he was doing these sort of physical moves against him and Konate all day long. It was the least amount of duels, I think, that Van Dijk has won in the Premier League game, I believe is the stat I read. I think Muniz won 50% in the air overall in the game, which against those centre-backs I think is ridiculous. He's going up against two people there. A wonderful goal, and he really deserved it as well. His performance needed to be capped off with a goal, whether it came in the second half or not. It's 3-3 in the league. All three different types of goals. The one against Tottenham was a very composed finish. The one against Arsenal was a little bit scrappy, but I liked that one because he kept plugging away after he missed a sitter a few minutes earlier. That actually, I think, was a very important goal for him to make sure that he kept his confidence up. And then obviously this one was the best goal that I mean, other than the goal at Sheffield United, I think it's the best goal that he's scored for Fulham off the top of my head. I mean, obviously that goal was insane. I think this one is probably just as skillful, but when you take into account the caliber of the opposition, I think that it was just an amazing moment for him. I think it really announced him as well. I think that he's been, becoming more known by the wider footballing community and getting his flowers from pundits and fans alike. But I think to do this against Van Dijk in a high-profile game, I think this was his real, okay, this guy's the real deal moment.
3 goals in 3. I know it's overlapping between March and April, but if he continues his form, goal scoring wise, he could be in for another Player of the Month award. I mean, it really, really could be the case. I just want to quickly ask you about Muniz. I've done a lot of talk on my Patreon, which exists. Does it? Sorry. About Rodrigo Muniz. And I made a video last week. I did about a 45-minute podcast on it. That I think he is the new number 9 for Fulham going forward. There's been a lot of chat about we need a new striker, blah, blah, blah. And I actually believe we do need a new striker, different profile of striker. But I think Muniz has to be, given the fact he was given the number 9 shirt at the beginning of the season, he's got to be the main striker for next season. I just want to hear your take, and then what that means for Rao and what that means for if we do dip into the market in the summer.
I mean, I've had sort of mixed views on Muniz in the past. I think I've very much been on the we need a new striker train. I still think we need a new striker, but I don't think that now it's someone that is to be brought in and be the main man instantly. Maybe it's another young striker that we can try and bring through as well, to replace someone like Vinicius. I think that Rao still has a very important place in this squad, and as does Muniz, clearly. And with his age, he's at the age where if we commit to him, and if we offer him a new long-term deal, and if we stick with him, the potential he's showing is great. And he's taken on tough defenders repeatedly and coming out on top. The other day at Arsenal, I mean, he sort of got the wrong side of Saliba. And these are great players. Van Dijk again on Sunday. he hasn't played that much football for Fulham, really, in the Premier League. He obviously started this season after his amazing end to last season, and he had a couple of games, and then Raul came in, and Raul started doing really well. I said to my dad when we were walking into the ground on Sunday that I think the Muniz is better off the bench. And I was surprised that he was starting, even though I think he did really well against Arsenal and Tottenham. And I thought he actually did okay against Palace, and I think that's been forgotten because of the scoreline and the way the game went. I was proven completely wrong. His performance was fantastic. But that's the standard we need from him. And I think that he can do it. I'm not expecting it suddenly every single week. He's still young. If he was doing a performance like that every single week, he'd probably be playing for Barcelona. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Or someone of that ilk. But what this has shown to me is that I think that we've got two strikers now that are very, very good quality. Hopefully both ending on double figures minimum this season. Raul's already on it. Muniz now on to 8, I believe.
8 Premier League goals.
And obviously, he's in double figures when you take into account the cup games, which were important. In answer to your question, Jack, I still think we need a striker, but it's changed my perspective in terms of what that striker should be. And now it's a striker to complete our squad rather than as like the big signing of the summer. I think that the goal scoring issues can be that we've got in our squad, and we still do have. We didn't show them on Sunday, but overall we have shown them recently. Is that we're not prolific enough, and I think that can come from the wings more, and that's what I would like to see.
So going into the second half, I was thinking, God, this is not done. There's no way. It's just a 2-goal lead. We've still got 45 minutes to go. We've been in situations like this where we've been beating Liverpool before, and we know the game's going to be long and it's going to be tough. When we beat them in lockdown, that was obviously fantastic, but that game felt like 3 days long. And Liverpool come out of the second half, and Jota goes in, and it just looks like nailed on to score. But Leno does really, really well to save. In fact, Leno, who actually did I thought it was Anderson got booked, but it was Leno who got booked actually in the 95th minute, making some really big saves. Not only the one to Jota, the Chiesa one, which is inside the box, it has a bit of power on it, and the one with Elliott as well. Elliott hitting the bar, and then Diaz scoring for Liverpool to make it 3-2. So it was probably the worst time to concede because there was still enough time for them to sort of have all the ball, have all the territory, and make things really, really scary for us. It was an incredibly uncomfortable watch, probably the most uncomfortable I've been all season watching Fulham, and that includes the game at Anfield, which was just as intense, if not even more intense.
That game at Anfield was horrible, wasn't it? The added time, I remember. I was watching on a stream. I wasn't even there. Shocked, Joe watching on a stream. I can never beat the allegations. But yeah, this was horrible, Jack. And yeah, the moment that goal went in, you felt the atmosphere in the stadium change. I mean, don't get me wrong, we were still getting behind the team, but because of the amount of time that was left, because of the momentum that was with Liverpool, we'd already made our sort of defensive minded changes. I want to make a quick mention to Harrison Reed coming on because I slated him at Brighton.
Yes.
And people have not let me forget that. And I do want to clarify that I still stand by what I said about the Brighton game and his long-term future at the club. Specifically, I thought he was good in his cameo against Liverpool. I thought he did what was needed to do, which was come on, replace Lukic, who'd been booked, be reliable, be solid, just try and break up the play, take us up the pitch if you can. Nearly
scored.
Topped it off with a goal as well, which is a great effort and a great save. My mentions would have been absolutely done. I still would have much rather he did score. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. A word for him. The other cameos, I don't think were very good. I tweeted this. I thought that Adama was the right sub to bring on, but I don't think his performance was very good, and I don't think it's something we've been used to with him. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. The Smith Rowe one, I'm in two minds about because I thought it was an appalling cameo. I'm not gonna mince my words. I don't think he did anything that he was meant to do, but I also don't think he was the right player to bring on.
I think he was the right player to bring on at the time.
It was just like Pereira had been high energy, and this is what Pereira always does bring. In fairness to him, no matter if there's ever negativity, it's never work rate related. Smith Rowe's not that player, and don't get me wrong, he should be. work rate should be the minimum, but his confidence is obviously not super high. I don't think it was the right player to bring on at that time. I still think he should have put in far more effort than he did. There was a few times when he had a head start on players and he was letting them beat them, winning, sort of ducking out of headers slightly half-heartedly, and it was annoying to see because it meant that it was very easy to bypass him, and that was not the case with Pereira, as you rightly said for the second goal. Would Smith Rowe have won that header? Well, not won the header, contested the header and forced Robertson into a mistake? Probably not. And that's what we're missing from him. The final product and everything, the star quality that we bought is one thing, but work rate is an absolute minimum. So that annoyed me slightly.
We must move on. We've got Bournemouth to talk about before we wrap up. I just have to mention Sander Berge and Calvin Bassey. I mean, absolutely phenomenal. I think, especially Bassey, phenomenal performance considering who he was up against. And this guy's getting better and better and better. Unbelievable defensive work, unbelievable marauding runs, winning free kicks, one-on-one defending, perfect. Great match of the day 2 analysis on it if you want to watch it. Sander Berge driving us forward for the first goal, doing so well on the pitch, on the ball, and just brilliant. But let's move on to Bournemouth now. Huge game on Monday night, like absolutely massive game. And the state of the table is now we are currently 3 points above them, I believe. In the table we're on 48, they're on 45. If we can put a 6-point gap between us and Bournemouth, that is huge, absolutely huge. Joe, I just want to hear your lineup. I want to hear your thoughts on the game and your score prediction.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely huge game. The sort of game where if we hadn't have beaten Liverpool, we were sort of going into thinking we have to win it. Don't get me wrong, I still want to win it. I still think that to have a great shot of Europe, we need to win it. But a draw would be less of a bad result now. I think we need 4 points from the next 2, which is this and Chelsea. In terms of their form, they haven't been great. I think we need to take the game to them. So I'd want to line up with the same team, with the one change potentially being a swap between Tete and Castagne. But I want to caveat that I'm very heavily biased to Tete. I thought Castagne had a very, very good game on Sunday. So would not be annoyed at all if Castagne was in the lineup and we were unchanged. And I'm just really hoping to see Harry Wilson on the bench is what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that the extra day gives a chance for that. In terms of a score prediction, Jack, I feel like this is going to be high scoring because from Bournemouth's perspective, they're looking at this and probably thinking to have any chance of Europe, they need to win this game. They need to have a go at us. A draw's not good enough. A loss is obviously not good enough. I think that we're going to win another thriller here. I think we're going to win this 3-1. I think it's going to be the sort of game where we're 2-1 up and it's a bit nervy and we get a third on the break quite near the end. And I think this will be a huge, huge result to try and get European football. It's in our hands now, which makes it so tantalising to think about. Brighton, we were saying yesterday, we were messaging about it, that they've got Leicester at home. And after seeing Leicester, oh my goodness, if Brighton don't win that, then I have no words because they were just appalling. I think they will. Strange things have happened, but not that much stranger because Leicester have been so poor recently in terms of goal scoring.
They haven't scored for 2 months.
This is a huge game. It's ridiculous.
Their last goal was Bobby Deacon over Reed at Old Trafford.
I mean, what a bagsman. Why is he not playing? Maybe injured. I don't know. The team, the only other ones that you could maybe make a case for are people like Willian, but I think that after the way Iwobi played and with a big gap, I think you've got to go unchanged.
100% unchanged. But if Tete came in, that'd be fine by me. Someone gave me a bit of pelters. I was complimenting Castagna for the job he had done in the absence of Tete. I said he'd been excellent because overall I think he has been excellent. There's been a few dodgy performances in there, like a few mistakes. He got cooked by Martinelli, which is obviously recency bias. And someone was like, oh, I think he's been appalling. And I was like, considering he's only been the only right back, I think he's actually done a pretty good job. Got cooked by Gordon, but second half against Newcastle, he was fantastic. So yeah, that's the point I wanted to make. And he was excellent on Sunday. So look, football is a game of opinions. Not everyone's going to agree with everything. We don't always agree with each other. So that is fine. Yeah, I 100% agree. Unchanged unless, let's say Tete comes in for Castagna. I think that front three worked really, really well, especially off the ball as well. Sessegnon, absolutely fantastic, deserves to start. Muniz has to start for me from now on. Nothing against Raul, who I didn't think was great when he came on anyway. And I agree. I think we're going to win by 3-1. And I think it will be probably a game where it's like 1-0 Fulham and then 1-1. And then it's like, well, who's going to get the goal? And I think if Wilson is on the bench, he's going to come off the
He's
bench and
scoring.
score.
He's scoring.
Yeah, because he's got a bit of redemption to do at the Vitality after giving away that silly penalty where Fulham were about to bag the title against Parker's Bournemouth. I love Bournemouth. I think they've been fantastic this season. But obviously their form has dipped at the right time for Fulham. Away from home, Vitality, it's actually a really, really tough place to go for a lot of teams this season. City lost there, Arsenal lost there, both in the league. So Liverpool didn't lose there. I think they won. They won. Yeah. Anyway, I think 3-1. Joe, just finally before we go, Southampton are down. They're done. Leicester look all but down, as do Ipswich. All three who came up go back down. Your thoughts on that?
Bit depressing for the state of the league and the gap, and the fact that you look at the teams that are likely to come up next year, and it looks like, for example, it could be 2 out of the 3 that dropped, or 3 out of 3 that dropped. It's just a weird situation to be in. It's not impossible, as us and Forest and Bournemouth have shown. You need a little bit of luck, but I think that all 3 of these teams have shown what not to do. I think that Ipswich, maybe just the quality in their squad is just not quite there. Leicester's sort of in-season management has been appalling. Their choice to go with Van Nistelrooy, I don't think made sense. I don't think Cooper was doing the best job ever, and I understand why they weren't enjoying that at all. But ultimately, they've got so much worse since they changed manager to this manager. And Southampton, I mean, they basically writ off the first half of the season just before they played us by playing the most suicidal kamikaze football I've ever seen for players of that quality. And for persisting with that, they deserve this punishment. They haven't improved since then. I will be absolutely livid if we do not win at Southampton.
It's a possibility.
It is a possibility. And, teams can often improve once the sort of threat of relegation is no longer a thing. They're already gone. Play with a little bit more freedom. Although I would say for Southampton, I would say that playing with freedom is not the issue. I'd say it's potentially playing with too much. But yeah, it's sad. I disagree, as I think you disagree in terms of the narrative that's been like, this is the worst Premier League season ever.
It's been the best.
I disagree with it. Yeah, but I do think that the 2 things that most people look for are title challenge, relegation battle, and there has been neither. And I do understand that. But the race for Europe is really fascinating.
Everyone's. I'm looking at the table now. I think Brentford upwards, everyone's been magnificent this season. And then from Man United, Tottenham, Everton, West Ham, Wolves, incredibly average. And then the 3 going down have been absolutely terrible. Leicester, just unbelievably bad, like so bad. Van Nistelrooy, they should never have sacked Cooper, ever should have sacked Cooper. They were 16th at the time. Southampton, it's been, the Juric thing kind of reminds me of Ranieri, but at least Ranieri did something at Fulham. Juric has basically done nothing and then walked the day after relegation. Ipswich have got a lot of players who can be bought for big money. Philogene, Delap, loads of other. Cajuste, I still think, is a fantastic player. Loads of players. And it's been a bit of a poor season in terms of the relegation battle, but these things happen. Right, that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. We enjoyed being back on the pod feed. Joe, thanks so much for being here.
No, loved it, Jack. Thanks, everyone. And fingers crossed for a fantastic result against Bournemouth on Monday. I think there's still some tickets left. I think it's dropping down in points. But for those of you like me that can't make it due to work, being on the Monday and trying to get there, I'm hoping for a very good night watching on TV.
We shall see what happens. Monday Night Football. We'll be back again soon to talk Fulham. Thanks so much for watching. And come on, Fulham.